All right, so good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Forage Forum Fridays on this first Friday of 2022. So we welcome you today. We're excited to have all of you here to start a new year. Might be a little chilly outside, but it's warm inside, hopefully, and we get to learn some more great information about forages. So to kick us off today, we have Brooke Stefancic and Brock Kiesler here with us today. Brooke is kind of a part of our core team that's helped plan these meetings, and Brock is one of our hay producers here in Indiana. And I believe with our inaugural Hoosier Hay Contest, you had winners in at least two of our categories. Is that correct, Brock? You had, I think, the dry hay.
I had haylage and alfalfa haylage as well. Both in place, I believe, top three in the Hoosier Hay Contest.
Yep. So we're excited to have Brock here today, kind of share some of his expertise and his knowledge as well. So today's topic is kind of going to be talking about marketing and purchasing hay. So what are some of those things to look for, some of those kind of neat little tips and tricks. So with that, I'll leave it to you, Brooke, and let you go from there. So.
Perfect. Thanks, Alicia. So today, if you have questions during the presentation, if you can type those in the chat box, that would be great, and we'll answer them as we go. If you do not like the chat box, you want to unmute your mic. We just ask that if you're going to unmute to ask a question, you would wait to the end to do that. So that is how we'll go today. I'm the Sullivan County Agriculture and Natural Resources Extension educator, so I'm from the southwest part of the state. Brock Kiesler is kind of going to be our star today. I'm here supporting, helping answer questions and moderating for him. But he is a fifth-generation farmer from Greenville, Indiana. And along with the help of his brother, dad, wife, and son, he raises hay, beef, and some crops on his family farm that his grandpa started back in the 1950s. So he is expanding on his grandpa's legacy of making and selling hay. And he has a son that he hopes to pass that love of agriculture along to, named Hackman. So Brock, with that, I'll let you take it away and get us started for today.
All right. Thank you very much, Brooke. Thank you all for having me. I really appreciate it. Super excited to be here and share what I know with everyone about my dealings in the buying and selling of hay. So let me share my screen here and we will get right to it. Share. Brooke, it is currently not letting me share my screen.
Might be a control Alicia has to. Let me see if I can try now.
Let's see, desktop. No. Click the picture. Oh, here we go. Never mind. I figured it out. Sorry, my wife had to whisper to me how to do that.
You're fine.
Okay, can everybody see it all right then?
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay, great. Well, as stated, my name is Brock Kiesler, and I'm here to talk to everyone today about buying and selling hay. If you can see, this picture is actually of my grandpa. He passed this last December, but this was just a few years ago when he was in his mid-90s, helping do the hay. And if I didn't, talk about him here briefly, it wouldn't do it justice, because he's the reason I am in ag industry, and more specifically the hay industry. So I just wanted to give a little prelude to him. Let's start with my farming history. I officially started in 2015 with 4 acres of alfalfa. Actually, relating back to my grandpa, he was the one that helped me start. This was 2015 would have been my second year of college. I had actually went away for a couple of years to play basketball, and decided that I was sitting on the bus looking out at the hay fields and the corn fields and the crop fields and paying more attention to those than I was my upcoming game. So that's when I decided to come home, and farming was gonna at least be a part of my life, if not a big part of my life. So I began in partnership with my grandpa. He helped me start, he helped me plant, he let me use all of his equipment. I had nothing to begin with personally. So he gave me everything I needed, and all he asked was I help him in return. with what he had to do. And at this time he was 90 years old. So it was a lot of fun. We really had a lot of fun. From 2015, I slowly started to take over and expand the operation. If I remember correctly, at the time we were selling maybe about 5,000 small bales a year. And Grandpa was pretty much the one in charge. He was the one who, you know, called all the shots, made all the decisions. And as time went, he was old, but gotten older. He turned it over to me and let me start making more decisions, call the shots, when to cut the hay, what to fertilize, and keep track of inventory, what we had in the barn. I can specifically remember on many occasions hearing him on the cell phone saying, well, I'm going to have to ask my grandson. He knows more about what we got than I do anymore. So that was a big step towards me farming on my own. And it was very much appreciated by me of what all he did for me. So current day, I am running about 450 acres of crops, hay, and cattle. About half of that is hay, so 225 acres. We also do quite a bit of custom work. We baled about, I don't know, several hundred acres of straw and things like that. So our production totals are much higher than what they would be just through all the brokering and things like that we do. But we currently do about 50,000 small bales a year. About 40,000 of that is produced, and the other 10,000 we have to buy, trade, dicker around with people to get hay sold to my customers that need it. We also, this last year, started a contract to sell big squares to a outfit that does big, like roadside jobs, highway work, things like that. And we sold 650 to them. And we also rolled about 300 round bales of hay and then custom rolled another 600. And the only reason I'm really telling you all of this is just so you know, I don't spend my summers at the lake. We are very, very busy. We really love what we do, or else we wouldn't be doing it. And it's a love of passion. So something I really like to tell people when they call me as well is I like to be the last person you call when you're looking for the hay. So a lot of people have called me. I've retained a lot of customers because they know when they call me, even if I don't have it, I find it and get it delivered to them or get it to them. So on cold winter days like today, people can have hay for their animals. Let's start on to the next slide. Here's just a fun little video we took this summer of us baling hay. It was actually me on the rake, raking there. You can see that's my dad in the tractor and square baler. He's our #1 square baler man. And then my brother took on the job of running the tractor and bundler and bale bearing bundler. And boy, let me tell you, that was, once he was able to learn how to do that and run that, it really freed us up and made us way more efficient with our time and things like that. And give me 1 second here to get back on the slideshow. Once he was able to do that, that really relieved a lot of stress on me, getting me out of the tractor and into the field, doing other things, checking weights of square bales and things like that. And once we bought that thing, that really changed how we put up hay. It actually relates and affects how we sell hay. So when we sell it, you know, it really is all by the bundle, 21 bales at a time. And it makes it a lot easier on us, on the producer end of it, being able to put it in the barn and then sell it out to customers and load it to where they can, you know, everything's mechanical. There's very little hand labor left when we do small bales now. So let's go on to the next slide. So let's start into the selling hay and marketing methods. These are some different ways. If you see here, I have thought of people selling hay, and I've listed some good and bad things. Let's start with yard signs. Yard signs are the good. They are farm identifiers. It's really, really nice when someone's driving down the road or looking for your farm or has contacted you looking for hay, that there's a sign out on the road or some way to identify, well, that's our farm there.
Hey,
Especially,
Brock,
yes.
I don't think your slide changed, or at least it didn't for me. I still see the farm video slide.
Okay, what?
There it goes.
Did it do it now?
Yep. Oh, it's getting small.
Yeah. Okay, what about now? Can you see it?
Yep, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. Back to yard signs. They're good farm identifiers. I think most, if not every farm should have some form of farm sign to identify where are you at on the road, what's your driveway. So people looking for you, it makes it a lot easier. You can just tell them come 3 miles back this road, look for the sign, you'll see us. The bad of farm signs is they only limit you to local exposure. The only people that are going to know that you have hay there for sale are your neighbors or people just that perhaps drive down the road. If you were to happen to live on like a state highway or next to an interstate, that helps quite a bit, but it's more of a location than it is a, just luck of the draw. But most people, at least where we live, you will have limited exposure to let others know that you do have hay and have hay for sale. So we'll start with newspaper. We'll go to newspaper ads here. Newspapers are good. They get you a regional audience. If you think of some like the Farm World, I get the Farm World religiously and look through it always just to see what people have for sale, what hay is right now. It really gets a good regional audience here. Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, Illinois. I mean, I forget exactly all the states, Michigan, that you can get exposed to. The limitations and the bad of that is, unfortunately, newspapers don't get read like they used to. A lot of people that still read newspapers are unfortunately passing away. So the audience there is smaller, and it's an older school method, but an effective method. I have listed ads in the Farm World for sale and been able to sell several loads of hay to people that way. Just things to keep in mind. Let's go down to Facebook Marketplace. Facebook is great. I have listed hay there for sale. It gets you to a very broad audience. You can have people several states away wanting to buy hay, looking for hay, needing hay. It definitely gets you in contact with them. The limitation of that I have found myself is, unfortunately, it's always seems like people that buy hay from you on Facebook never end up turning into long-term customers as well. They always buy from you that one time because they're out and need it now, and then you never hear from them again. That may not be everyone's experience with that, but it is mine personally. Another way to sell hay is word of mouth. I do probably, I would say 80% of my sales through a word of mouth customers. You really get some great lifelong customers. We've had people that bought from my grandpa and now buy from me, and they'll be with us till the day we quit. So it's been absolutely fantastic. Word of mouth. You really get a vote of trust from people when they tell others that you have hay for sale and it's good hay. The problem with that, once again, like the yard signs, it's a small audience. It never seems like you have enough customers telling other people that you have hay for sale and to buy some hay. Finally, we have your local auction. Where I'm at in Southern Indiana, we actually don't have any local auctions closer than maybe 2 hours away. So this isn't something I have a whole lot of experience with. However, I have sold a little bit of hay at auction before. The pro is it's a guaranteed sale. You take the hay there. If you don't have a reserve or some type of way on that, you are, your hay, you will not have hay. So it will definitely be for sale. It'll be sold. You won't have that on hand anymore. Unfortunately, it is at a market price. So when I took hay to Dinky's over in Montgomery, Indiana, I had some nice round bales, nothing spectacular, but I think I got maybe $12 a roll for them, which didn't even get me the fuel price to get them out there. So you are at the mercy of the market, and if people want it or don't want it, things like that. Now, if you look at this picture here we have, it's kind of a funny picture, and unfortunately I can't hear anybody laugh, but this picture here is of one of our accidental marketing methods. My dad tends to forget sometimes to get out of the tractor and baler and look when he's pulling out of the field and going to the next field to bale. And he has, on more than one occasion, left the bale in the middle of the road And it's kind of funny to me because, well, if it's there in the middle of the road, people have to see it. And if they take it, then you can bill them for it and they have to buy it. So it's just something funny to look at and see there. But I got to tell myself, that's, like I said, that's not the first time it's happened, but we're getting better. It's not becoming a habit as bad anyway.
I had one question on selling hay. Do you know of any specific, or have you used hay marketing websites like that are made specifically for maybe marketing farm or hay things?
Yes, I have heard of allhay.com. I've never used any specifically myself. There was another one that was put on through the company of Tractor House that runs Tractor House. And I think it's Sand Hills is the parent company. I cannot think of the other company, but there are several hay selling. Hay Map is another one. Websites you can sell hay through specifically. I've not had much experience with them personally to say, well, this one works really well or this one doesn't. So
Yeah, Keith had one more called the Hay Barn that is a hay marketing website. So if people are interested in some of those resources, that's one.
yep. Like I said, I'm sure there's hundreds out there, but some I've never heard of or dealt with personally. So okay, we'll go back to selling hay here. Working with customers. This is from my experience. When you work with customers, especially long-term customers, you want to build relationships. Knowing more about the person other than they are a paycheck to you, knowing about their family, asking about their hobbies, things like that really helps develop a relationship over time. And this is not something that happens on the first meeting, but if you get somebody to start buying hay from you and hay consistently, it's always nice to check up and, see how they're doing. Spend 5 minutes visiting with them. Seems to be a good practice with me, just to, let them know, hey, I'm more than just your hay guy. I could be a friend, and yeah, you do pay me, but it's more than that sometimes. My grandpa had spent years dealing with people, and that's why I learned a lot of how to deal with customers and things like that. Secondly, when you're working with customers, you want to be fair and set terms, but be flexible. So when I say this, for me personally, we have a bale baron and we bundle all of our hay up, 21 small bales, things like that. For me, like, setting terms would be a minimum. When somebody wants to come buy hay, I try to set a minimum of 21 bales. It's not worth my time to bust a bundle, give you a couple bales, things like that. Buy the 20 bales, try it out. I would say I've had a return rate of maybe less than 5% potentially. And it works out a lot better. Now, to be flexible, if you look down in the bottom right corner here, this white truck with a load of hay on it, this fella here has bought hay for me and my grandpa for, I couldn't tell you how many years now, but he is a broker. And when he buys his hay, he likes to touch every bale and stack it on there. Now, 99% of my hay is sold in a bundle, but because he's been a good customer, he buys full loads of 277 or 289 bales at a time. We make the exception and be flexible with him, and we cut them open, stack them on there, and we're really left with very few extra bales hanging around. So I try and work with people as much as possible to make it work on everybody's terms so that everyone's happy with the deal. Something else you want to do is you want to be upfront and firm on pricing. It's never good when someone says, hey, I want some hay. I need hay right now, and then you take it, deliver it, and they say, well, I didn't even ask how much it was. And then they get mad when you tell them it's $6, $7, $8, $9, $10 a bale because they needed it right then and there, and you had to drop what you were doing to get it to them. So I always try, and at least personally, when I deal with people, tell them, hey, it'll be this much, if they don't ask. Things like that really take a lot of the gray area and potential for people to be mad at you off the table. Another way when you're working with customers is to be reachable and available. Have your phone on you, answer your phone when customers call, and then be available for them to either come and pick it up or come and, you deliver it, things like that. I couldn't tell you how many times I have had people, well, just in the past couple of days, calling me because, well, they're still on the ground. They think they need some more hay, things like that. And while I may be in the middle of something, I always try and answer the phone. So that way they don't feel like I'm putting them off or things like that. Cause they're just as important, their animals being fed as it is, to me, making sure they stay fed. Um, Types of communication when you're working with customers, I've found phone calls are best. The random texts I get from random numbers, it's hard to develop a relationship or talk to people and find out what they want and what they're looking for. The best time I know when texts work is if you're trying to set up a time, or if you've talked to someone on the phone and then I always have them send me their name and number, address, things like that, to reaffirm and remind me that, hey, I've got this text of this person that's getting hay. I've talked to them on the phone. I know what they want. I know how many bales they need. I know when they're coming or when I'm delivering it, things like that. But for initial purchase orders or things like that, phone calls are best. It seems to me texts are really easy to send a text on either end, and either I forget about it to deliver it, or they forget they ordered it, things like that. It's easier to ignore than a phone call. Another way, when you're trying with new customers or trying with consistent customers that, you may be running out of certain type of hay, is give them a sample or a try before you buy, as I have in quotes there. Excuse me. If you can, don't just give them one bale, give them a couple. One bale can be a loaded bale. It may be bad. There may be a bad spot in it you don't see, things like that. If I have a consistent customer and they're buying a full load and I'm about out of that type of hay, I try and set one bundle of 21 on there of the other type of hay so they can try it and make sure they like it before I bring them a full load of it. This is good business. You got to make it work for you on to how you give samples, but a bale or a bundle or one round bale, one big square, whatever you give them to try is always good, before they want to buy a full load or a lot. I couldn't really tell you of any time I've made an exception on this or tried to change it or not done it with people. The hardest ones to give samples to are the people who only buy a few bales a year. So they're never using enough hay to really know what the product is. Those are the ones I've had the most difficult, either trying to give them a sample or them wanting a sample and not take enough hay because of it. So finally, stand behind your product. Have confidence in what you have and what you sell. You know what your product is, what it's worth, all the work you've put into it. But mistakes happen. I tell everyone I kind of offer a warranty on my hay. Excuse me. That if they find some bad spots, or there's a bundle they don't like, or maybe I accidentally got a little hay in a bundle they didn't want, or a round bale, all I tell them is please bring it back. I will either give you a full refund on your money, or I will exchange it for other hay that you like. This happens to me enough, but not very often. The last time I can think of it happening was maybe a month ago. A guy gave me back 12 bales out of a 21 bale bundle, that he said, well, I don't like this hay, but I just delivered him 230. So, he took all of that, but there was just, 20 bales out of it he didn't like. So, we took that back. It happens frequently enough, but if you sell a good product, you have good hay, it's not going to be a constant problem. It will happen. Nobody is perfect, but it's not going to greatly affect your business or constantly in and out with your cash flows. So. Next, we move on to selling hay, making ads. So as a producer, when you go to sell your hay, the biggest number one thing you could probably do is know your target customer. Are you selling to the horse industry, the dairy industry, the beef industry? Who are you selling to? An Amish, a hobby farmer, a commercial operation? You know, these things greatly affect how you want to sell it and how much of you want to sell it and what the price is. You know, a person who has one horse and is just a hobby farmer isn't going to buy as much hay, and thus, in my opinion, going to have to pay a little bit more than someone who is a big commercial operation buying tens of thousands of big squares a year that, you know, they're looking for a price point better, and you can offer it better because of how much the quantity they're buying. And it's good to know who you want to sell to. Are you going to sell by the semi load to these big operations? Are you willing to go down and sell, you know, a couple square bales at a time to your hobby beef farmer or horse farmer or whoever? Secondly, you want to be simple but informative when you make your ad. You know, is your hay fertilized? Do you have a forage analysis? You know, the animals it's good for, what cutting, what color or mix of species, excuse me, location and storage. All of these things are good. I've noticed, like here locally in the Midwest, it's not that big a deal to put if you fertilized your hay or how much fertilizer you've put on. But if you look down in Texas for some of the grass hays they sell, you see a lot of fertilized with this much fertilizer at this time, things like that. You know, your forage analysis. This is really good for your dairy operations if you're selling high quality alfalfa or things like that. It's nice to have, and I do forage test my hay, but as far as many people in the horse industry that I deal with, they don't really care. It doesn't really bother them that much. It's all about the looks to them. And, you know, other things, you know, where are you located when you put this ad up? Is it stored inside? Is it a round bale that's kept outside but net wrapped? Things like that, that can give more details to what the hay is and what you have for sale. Thus you don't have to answer as many questions on the back end when people call or message you, is always a good thing. Next, I have CCQC. This is something I kind of go by when setting pricing and things like that for my hay, and something I try to strive and I keep pretty consistent through my business model. And that's cut, color, quality, consistency. It's kind of just a quick thing you can remember in your mind. But, you know, when you're pricing your hay, is it first cutting? Is it second cutting? You know, and small bales or round bales, that can make a difference of, in a round bale, 10 to 25 to even $30 a roll. Or small bales, you know, you can talk $1 or $2 more per bale just because it's not a first cutting, it's a second or third or fourth. What's the color on it? You know, is it good, pretty, and green? Does it look good in a bale? You know, that obviously affects the price. And when you're making the ad, how does it look? The quality of it. Quality is very subjective. I could tell you it's good hay, and you could look at me and tell me, no, it's not. And there's not one person to tell you any difference. Now, forage analysis with this kind of cuts that down, but it's still subjective to most people. You could give a horse person a really good forage analysis and they say my horse won't eat it, so it doesn't matter. So what quality of hay is it? Is it, you know, the first cutting grass pasture mix that somebody wants, or is it your top notch pure alfalfa? And finally, consistency. And this is something I've tried to get better at. And as I get bigger or do more hay, it's harder to keep consistency. I know a couple years ago we were baling straw, and I paid a guy with an accumulator and a baler to come out and bale some for me to take some of the stress off of my equipment and help us get done faster. And unfortunately, when he bailed, he didn't make the bales tight enough. We go to sell it to a customer, a very big landscape customer of mine, and weight matters to them. They want good, heavy, tight bales. Well, I get a phone call and he's mad. He's buying light bales for too much money. It's consistency, and being on top of consistency is a very, very big thing. You know, you want consistent hay. Is all the hay you're selling going to be the same consistent mix? You know, you're not going to have that one grassy bale in there and your alfalfa from a waterway or things like that. Next, we have good pictures. You want to have good pictures when you post an online ad or an ad in the paper, if you can post pictures with it, things like that. You know, you want good lighting that shines on it. You know, it's not diluting the camera. You want to take a couple good angles, maybe one up close, you know, one of some of the hay from the middle of the bale in your hand. And it's worth the money to invest in a good camera if you're going to do much marketing online. For me, I have the dumbest smartphone you can find. So I have to have my brother, my dad's wife, anybody with like a really good iPhone that can take a really nice picture of the hay and show, you know, what it is, and it'll show on the online ad. Next, when you're making an online ad, you want to have one type of hay per ad. This is really good if you're trying to sell, you know, your hay, or you have several bales you want to sell. You don't want to put too many types of hay for sale in one ad. It gets to be too much for the people looking, the pictures, you know, you want to post several good pictures. And if you're posting several good pictures of all the different types of hay, that gets kind of confusing and it's hard for people to follow. And then it just follows you answering a whole lot of questions later on. So to cut down on that, I suggest making one type of hay per ad. One exception I have found is for business pages on, say, Facebook, or on your newspaper ads, or different ways, you know, you can list kind of what you have in your inventory of each hay, because you're more marketing to already customers you've already had. So that way, you know, your customers can see, oh, this is what he has for sale right now, as of right now, or this is what they're putting up. So that's one exception for that if you're making posts on Facebook or something of the sort. Another thing is be honest and don't misrepresent. I have some pictures later on in here, but if the hay has been stored in a barn and there's no doors on it or something like that, and there's some fading on the outside, you know, show that. I mean, you don't have to show a whole lot of it, but in the ad, say, you know, around the outside is faded, but you open it up and it's a beautiful green. When you start misrepresenting hay and trying to sell it to people, that not only gives all hay producers a bad name, but it really builds a lot of distrust with you and your customers. And it's hard to overcome that and keep a customer once you've tried to sell them something they didn't want or you misrepresented. Another good thing to put in the ad is the type of packaging the hay is in. Do you have round bales, large squares, small squares? You know, is your round bale a 5x6 or a 4x5? You know, that makes a big difference. I have somebody that just called me actually 2 days ago looking for hay, only needed about 4 round bales, but the round bales had to be 4x5s, which is luckily what we make, because they only had a 30 horse tractor to unload with, and any bigger than that and their tractor couldn't handle them. So things like that, you know, make a difference. Large squares, you have 3x3, 3x4s, and 4x4s, and all of those market to different types of customers. Very few horse customers are going to buy a 4x4 large square. You know, that's looking for more your beef or dairy industry. Finally, your small squares. You would think that there's only one type of small square, but if you were to go out west, they have 3-string bales, which here an average small square 2-string bale averages about 45 to 50 pounds. If you go out west, they're like 100-pound 3-string bales. So, you know, making sure people just don't assume that's what you have if you don't. Then finally, one good thing to follow is under promise and over deliver. Don't build up your hay to make it look like it's the greatest hay in the world. Make it, you know, tell them it's good hay. You've had good luck selling it to other people. You've never had any problems out of it. And then take it to them, let them eat it, and then let them call you and say, yeah, that was really good hay. I was really happy with that. I had a customer not too long ago switch over and start buying hay from me. He had called me. We'd been talking for maybe a year before he ever made his first purchase, and he wasn't happy with his previous guy. Fell victim to a lot of these things we've talked about thus far, and that, you know, he was misrepresenting the hay. He was really, you know, pushy to get it sold, really not being flexible about his terms. And then, this fella bought some hay for me. We didn't buy everything he needed, but he wanted to buy enough to try some. And about 2 weeks later, he called me and said, "Man, I just really like that hay. It was really, really good hay. My horse is eating it really well. You've got all my business." And I tell you what, I don't get many phone calls like that, but they're really nice when you do get them. Okay, so we'll be moving on unless there's any questions.
Got a couple. So when or if you deliver hay, do you ever deliver hay like the day of harvest? So do you take bales out of the field and deliver them to a customer? And do you ever worry about those 2 to 3 weeks after baling is that critical time where if they're going to heat or if they're going to mold? Do you ever worry about that, or have you had experience, or do you keep them all in the barn until?
I have done both, so I have delivered quite a bit of hay right out of the field. Anymore, with how much we bale in one day and try and get sold, even if we sell it the next couple days, it's really tough for us logistically to make it happen. We try and get it in the barn, and then once we know it's going to keep or things like that, try and sell it. But I've had multiple experiences where I've delivered hay to somebody, and it's curing in their barn, and they'll call me excuse me, very angry, thinking the hay's molding or things like that. Fortunately, some things we've done to avoid such issues is like put on preservative applicators on our balers. So that way, we have a better chance of it keeping. If you do have any questions or doubts in your mind about the hay keeping, don't sell it. It's not worth it. Let it cure in your barn, put it in a good aerated area, where the wind can get to it, the air can get to it, the sun can get to it, and let it dry out and check it before you sell it. It's not worth the hassle of having to go and get it out of someone's barn or them telling you it's bad and you saying, no, it kept fine. It does happen. And like I said, I have done it, but I try and sell the hay that I'm very confident I know will keep and things like that, and sell it to people that, know that, and when they buy it, know that it needs to wait about 2 to 3 weeks before they can feed it as well.
Yeah. And then when you're pricing your bales, do you look at the price per ton and try to figure out what each bale is from there, or how do you go about like pricing? What's your process?
My process for pricing hay is fairly simple, and I don't go by the ton unless I have like a forage analysis or things like that to sell, like say round bales. Typically, I price it by the bale, and then if I have to sell like small squares by the ton, I then work the math to make it out to the same. But for me, when I sell hay or straw or anything like that, the cheapest thing I will probably sell is going to be my straw, and my most expensive is going to be my really nice second, third, fourth cutting pure alfalfa. And to me, I know, a bale of straw now is going to be $4.50 a bale out of the barn, which is a pretty standard thing. I have not changed that price in the past year. Now with fertilizer and other things and twine going up, it may have to be raised this year, but I try to be fair and very consistent with my pricing throughout the year, not just, person to person. If you keep your prices consistent, in summertime, pure alfalfa is going to be $8. Wintertime, it's going to be $8, things like that. People really gravitate towards that. So they know, if I buy it during the summer out of the barn, it'll still be $8 in the winter when I need some more. So things like that, obviously if you sell some out of the field or work some different deals with people, you can offer discounts or things like that. But generally that's my rule. And as say straw sets my base, alfalfa, sets my high end, and then everything else falls in between. The lower end grass hay $5.50, alfalfa first cutting $6 to $7 depending on how it looks and how I feel about it and how good it is. second cutting alfalfa orchard grass mix right around $7. So things like that. I've been selling long enough now. I kind of know where the market is and what sells good for me at what price. So if that helps people kind of base off what they have and what they want to sell, that's, like I said, where my pricing is at with things. So.
Perfect. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Being a guy that has not only sold hay, but I have bought hay and brokered hay, and with the cows, I even feed hay. So I've had a lot of experience on all sides of the spectrum with hay. And with that, buying hay as a customer, it's always good to do a self-evaluation. This being, look at yourself, what kind of animals do I have? And know your totals or your feed rate. So, are you a indoor horse arena that trains horses and you need 250 bales a month delivered in your barn? This is a customer I have. Things like that to know what you're going to need and what you're going to want year in and year out. Are you going to need 700 bales at one time to feed all your animals for the year, and you have an ability to store all that? All of these things are good to look at yourself and know what you need and don't need to, when you call a said producer and say, this is the hay I want, this is the storage I have, things like that. Those really help set you up for success as far as you buying the hay. If you can know these things about yourself and look inwardly before you start looking outwardly, it really, really helps. My best customers do this, and this is why I'm kind of doing a self-customer evaluation. So another thing to do is a good buying customer is buy early and establish good relationships. Buying your hay during the summer and putting it in your barn is going to guarantee you have it for a cold January day where, excuse me, where you're going to need the hay to feed to your animals. And establishing good relationships with a producer guarantees that you're going to be high on their list of people to sell to when it comes summertime and there's a drought and hay's going to be short this year, but they'll make sure you're taken care of. Some things to also know is the cheapest hay doesn't mean the best deal. Normally the cheapest hay I have found is what you pay the most for because you have to feed so much of it or get rid of some of it or things like that. But it's not about finding the best price. It's about finding the best deal for what the hay is and what you need. Another good thing to do is ask questions and don't assume. Don't assume that, they'll have enough hay for you. Ask, are you going to be able to provide this for me at this price year round? You know what I mean? Another thing is be reasonable and flexible when possible. The biggest thing with this is receiving deliveries, be reasonable that it's going to take somebody a couple days to get a load put together and help to get it delivered to you. Or it's going to be, after work when you can come pick up said delivery. And sometimes things change, as a farmer, I can make a plan in the morning and it changes 10 times before lunch. So sometimes you have to be flexible with a person or a producer to pick up the hay. And then the best customer scenario, this is something I put down there just to kind of go over, but I can tell you about some of my best customers. They are, like I said, somebody that has, they've got several sheep, llamas, few horses, a big barn, and they know every year that they want to buy about 750 small squares and 21 round bales. And it changes ever so slightly in the springtime if they have some left over, but they have been great customers to work with. They have bought from us for 20 plus years, and they know that they will be able to pick up the small squares out of the field. That's what they want to do. It works for them, but they ask me to deliver the round bales and stack it in their barn because their tractor's not big enough to stack them too high. So, things like that, being able to tell somebody what you want and what you need and being able to buy enough to where it makes it work for both parties These are, like I said, some great things to go through when you're trying to buy hay from someone. Okay, on to the next one, if there's no questions.
Nope,
Okay,
not for that one. Yeah, go ahead.
okay, now let's go on to buying hay, but some red flags. This is when you see ads out there and you're going to need to buy some hay from somebody new, or you've been buying hay from somebody and their antics kind of change on how they're acting. But some things to watch out for that I've seen that relate to a bad hay purchase or not purchasing the hay you want. This is limited ad information. When you see the ad, it's just a very short, brief hay for sale. It doesn't say what kind of hay for sale. They don't tell you what it is, when it's baled, anything that we've talked about previously in the selling slides. It's just a very short and sweet, and it doesn't give you confidence to know what kind of hay they're selling. Bad pictures. This also relates to online ads. If you look over here to the right, you can see I've put up 3 pictures, and all of these 3 pictures are some you could see online, but what you can't tell between the 3 pictures without a very trained eye is actually that all 3 of these pictures are of different types of hay, different, years of baling, things like that. But to an untrained eye, if someone posted these pictures and said, oh, this hay is for sale, you could assume that it was all the same. But the top left picture is a picture of a load of Timothy. The top right is a picture of us baling out in the field, but it doesn't show you anything about the hay before it was cut. It just shows you it in the windrow. It doesn't show the bales up close, anything like that. Finally, the bottom one is a picture actually we took when we were out in the straw fields, and it was sunsetting, looked like a cool picture, but like I said, it would be easily misinterpreted that maybe all 3 of these pictures are the same and it's good hay and this and that, but you can't really tell. So pay attention to the pictures. We'll talk about good pictures here later on, but things like that. Pressure buy. If someone is trying to pressure you into buying the hay, they're telling you, oh, I'm running out, you have to buy it now. Things like that lead to you buying hay you may not need, or you making a bad decision about the hay you want. It can be tough if someone's telling you the honest truth that truly it is running out and it's been hay you're buying. That's one thing. But if it's trying to buy new hay from someone and they're not giving you good information and they're just saying you need to buy it now before it runs out, that I would not suggest doing that. Next, they demand immediate repayment, and it kind of ties into the next one where it's an odd form of payment. If someone demands you pay them in cash all up front without taking the hay before you've ever seen it, don't do it. It's not generally, it does not work out. If you're buying large amounts of hay and you need a semi-load and they request that you pay for a quarter, a third, or a half, but not full payment of the hay, that seems more trustworthy to someone to deal with, because it secures on their end as well as your end that you're spoken for this hay, we'll get it loaded up and shipped to you, pay the other half when it arrives. That's a good way to deal with somebody. But if they're saying you need to write me a check and put it in the mail now for hay, especially with someone you haven't dealt with before, it could very easily be a scam. Finally, bad communication on the producer's part. You try and get a hold of them, reach out, text, call. They're not getting back with you, but just trying to get you to buy the hay or not talking to you about it. I would try and avoid that. It's all about relationships and having good relationships with customers and producers. So some things to avoid. Next, if we don't have any questions.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Buying hay. Here's a good ad I found about buying hay. This is from a fellow on Facebook. You can easily tell. It's short and sweet, to the point, but it gives you plenty of information you need to know. It's got the price. It tells you the weights of the bales, which is a pretty honest evaluation, between 40 and 50 pounds for a 2-string bale. It gets to be unbelievable to me if they tell you it's 60 plus pounds for a small bale of hay, because it is very hard to do without having a lot of extra water in the bale, because you just start blowing the strings off of them or things like that, and they're hard to handle. So 40 to 50 pounds is very believable. It tells you it's third cutting, premium horse quality in 2021, orchard grass. It tells you the type of hay. And from somebody that's bought a lot of hay and sold a lot of hay, especially orchard grass, I can look at the pictures here and see the up close picture. Well, that is orchard grass. I don't really see any other types of grass in there. It's got the pretty blue color to it, blue and green color to it. And then you see a further out shot to the left there that shows the whole bale. And it just shows you it's all consistently color. I don't see any weeds sticking out of it or anything like that. It also tells you where they're located, and it's, delivery is available. So all things good to know and tell you about when buying hay, as a hay buyer. All good things. This is a very good ad posted. They don't have their number up, which is very understandable due to it being out on Facebook. You can get a lot of spam calls or things like that. So seems like a pretty honest ad, a pretty trustworthy ad. A couple other things I would like to see as far as picture goes, maybe where it's stored, and what it's, stored in and how it's handled, or how it's loaded. Good things to know as well. And we will move on to here. So this is some other good photos you can look forward to when you're buying hay online. The top left picture, it's not the greatest picture, but it does show the hay out in the field. When it was baled, I can see the weather. It was pretty and sunny, things like that. The next picture just below that is a good, honest picture. You would think, man, I don't want to buy or sell hay, that has that faded to the left in the picture. It's got that faded brown and next to that pretty green hay. Well, it's all the same hay, but the way it was stored, it was open face barn. So some of it bleached, but you pull back that brown, it's pretty green. The color really doesn't affect a horse eating it. I don't care what you tell me. I know that a horse will eat brown hay as well as it'll eat pretty green hay, as long as it's a bleached, not something from high moisture or something like that. If you go just to the right on the bottom of the picture of the single square bale, this is a good picture to show you. Shows you one full square bale, what it looks like, what you can expect to see. And, you can tell it's kind of fine stemmed. It's good, solid bale. Next, if we go all the way to the right with the hood of the tractor picture, you can see a picture of the field. Now, to some people, it would seem kind of silly to post a picture of the field. And if you see a whole lot of pictures of a field, it's kind of redundant and pointless in an ad. But one good picture of the field and what it looks like, you can look out through there, see there's no weeds, see it's a nice field of alfalfa. I don't see any orchard grass in it, but that's not to say there isn't. But the biggest thing you can look and see is there's no weeds or any invasive species in there that a horse may not, or any animal may not want to eat. Finally, if we go to the other two pictures on the top row, the one picture is a close-up of the actual small square that's just below it. And that's also a good picture to have. It shows you there's leaf in there. It's fine stem, pretty green color. Those are good. And then if you look at the round bale, this is a good picture of a round bale. It shows you what a single bale looks like. You see the pretty green color, and what it looks like. And with this round bale, this was right after it had been baled. Good things to look for as well. If you're buying it in the wintertime, see a picture of what it looks like now. Is it faded in color a little bit? Is it stored outside? A picture of where it's stored. Another good picture would be, I've seen a lot, is people, pull out a big flake and put it in their hand of what the center of the bale may look like. So you can kind of tell what kind of hay you got there and what to expect. Okay, we're moving on. Finally, does anyone have any questions I may answer?
We have a couple in the chat, so I'll ask those, and then if anyone wants to unmute and ask, go ahead. With your relationship with landowners, not sure if you lease any ground or what, but how do you cultivate good relationships with those that you either do hay harvest for them, or maybe you purchasing hay from them and selling to others?
Yeah, so I have a lot of guys I work with on both ends. We bale quite a bit of hay right out of the field for people we've worked with. I've brokered the hay where I buy it from the guy and then resell it. Um, we bale hay. I've got several guys that live right around me that, the deal is if they rake the hay up and put it in the windrow, I'll come through, we'll small bale it, we'll bundle it, and then we'll store it in either their barn or ours, and we split it. So that way it gives them a little better price and a guaranteed sale on some good hay. And it helps me keep my production up to keep up with customer demands. Finally, leasing hay ground is kind of tough because the best hay ground I can lease is really big open fields. And normally I'm competing with crop guys for those. So a lot of people I leased hay ground from that is good fields, or what I consider really good hay ground, they wanted it hay. They want a rotation of hay in there. Typical rotation for me, I can see a couple years of corn, beans, and then back into hay. And a lot of people around me really like that rotation to keep erosion down and things like that, and the benefits that hay can provide. And there's certain ground that I lease as well that isn't suitable for crops. If you actually look up in the top right corner with the tractor and the rake, you can see there that that's actually, it doesn't show it, but a pretty big hillside, and used to be cow pasture, and it's just not suitable for crops. So we're able to harvest that hay there and sell it.
Perfect. So it looks like Alicia has some polls going for those that are here. So if you guys would answer those, that would be great. At this time, I'll let anyone who wants to unmute and ask a question, go ahead and do that.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen now as well.
Okay.
Not everybody at once.
I do have one or two more in the chat, but I just want to make sure if anyone wanted to unmute that we could. So let's see. Have you found a weather source, an application, or a news site that is accurate for weather? What do you use before you decide if you're going to cut that day?
I have not found any weather apps or anything that I think is a guaranteed to tell me. I've had more hay rained on than I'd care to admit, and ruined due to hay. So that's been a pretty tough thing to overcome. But in our part of the world, this part of the Midwest, it's really hard to predict weather. So the best suggestion I have is to actually watch the news and the weather, have a couple apps on your phone and check all of them, and just go with your gut feeling, see what the weather's going to do. Is it going to be a nice little dry spell for a while? Are you taking a chance? Things like that. It's pop-up storms are inevitable. So I don't have a silver bullet answer for that question, but educate yourself on how the weather works in your area. Watch the weather like a hawk and do the best you can.
Yeah, I had last summer, actually, our third cutting said it was going to be dry for a lot of days. He got on the ground and like 2 days later it rained. And so I was really worried, but we ended up taking a forage test and I still had really good protein and the fiber and stuff wasn't too bad. So I was really glad to have that forage test though. So, I mean, for people who are buying hay, if you're worried about it or whatever, that forage test tells you exactly what you're getting. And you can get with an extension educator or a nutritionist to let you know. If you don't know what your animals need, then you need to get with your vet or a nutritionist, and then you can look for hay with a forage test that meets what you need, and there's no guesswork in that. So
yeah, unfortunately for me, like the last probably 2 out of 3 years, maybe even the last 3 years, it seems like, unluckily, I've had at least one cutting of alfalfa rained on, enough to where it wasn't worth baling. We had to bale it for cow hay and feed it that away. And as a producer, it's actually, for a guy, this isn't about selling hay, but it's always good to keep a few animals around, whether they be cows, llamas, giraffes, whatever eats hay, to feed your cull hay to. That way you don't have to try and sell your bad hay. You can just feed it to your animals. It's bound to happen that you're going to have, you know, some hay along a wood line that is going to be too heavy when you bale it, and you just need to go ahead and feed that to your cows so you don't accidentally give that to a customer.
Yeah. Okay, well, it is 1 o'clock. So, Alicia, I think you had a few last minute announcements, right?
Yes, thank you. Yep, so if everybody could finish kind of completing the polls, that would be great. And then just wanted to share these couple of little things coming up. So obviously you guys have the list of our upcoming sessions for the next 7 weeks. So next week we will be talking with Dr. Shelby Gruss about opportunities with sorghum genetics. She's been doing some great work there at Purdue with some exciting things coming up. But we're excited about the next upcoming 7 sessions. So we invite you back. And as always, there will be recordings as well on the YouTube channel if you're not able to attend live. Also, on February 24th, for those of you that are here in Indiana, we have our Indiana Forage Council annual meeting. It will be held at the SureTech Labs in Indianapolis. So we'll have our board meeting ahead of time. There will be a meal as well. There'll be a small cost to help cover that. And then Dr. Gruss will be speaking. We'll have a tour of SureTech Labs. And I believe our representative for the American Forage and Grassland Council speaker contest will be there as well. So great time, great opportunity to network with individuals. We'll have some more information coming out here shortly. So with that, we thank you all for coming today. Great session. Thank you so much, Brock, for sharing some of your knowledge and tips that you've learned over the years. So
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right, so thank you, everybody. Enjoy your Friday afternoon. It may be cold, but at least for me, the sun's shining, so I'll take it. So, all right, have a great weekend, everybody, and we hope to see you next week.